Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. The sandstorm had finally settled over FOB Stryker when Grady Fritz stepped out of the Tactical Operations Center, his Ranger tab catching the harsh Iraqi sun. At 34, he carried the quiet authority of a man who'd spent 12 years perfecting the art of control violence. His marriage to Sherry had survived 4 deployments through handwritten letters, satellite calls, and an unshakable faith that some things were worth the distance. The tactical radio on his belt crackled. "Sergeant Fritz, Colonel wants you at HQ." Now, Grady exchanged glances with his second-in-command, Douglas Dorsey, a barrel-chested demolitions expert from Alabama. That tone means something's wrong. Inside the air-conditioned command center, Grady found his battalion commander, Colonel Martinez, standing beside a satellite phone with an expression Grady had seen only twice before, both times delivering death notifications. "Grady, I'm putting you on speaker with someone from back home." The voice that came through was broken, age beyond its years. "Grady? It's Chester Gregory. I'm so sorry, son." Chester had been the police chief in Millridge Creek, Montana, since before Grady was born. The man who'd taught him to fish, who'd convinced the judge to let teenage Grady choose military service over juvenile detention after that bar fight. His voice never shook. It was shaking now. "Your brother Wade." Chester's breath hitched. "Wade and Marissa and the kids. They're gone, Grady. All of them." The room tilted. Grady's hand found the desk edge. Wade, his younger brother by 3 years, the one who'd stayed behind to run their father's construction business. Marissa, his high school sweetheart. Their 3 kids. Emma, 9, Jacob, 7, Sophie, 4. What happened? Grady's voice came out cold, flat. "Combat mode. The Medina crew. Jesus, Grady, they executed them. In broad daylight, at the construction site. 15 witnesses. Raul Medina himself pulled the trigger while his boys held everyone back. Arrest them." Silence. "Chester, arrest them." Sheriff Dixon buried the case. Said the witnesses recanted. Evidence was contaminated. Jurisdiction issues. The state police won't touch it. Raul's got his claws in deep. Judges, DA's office, half the damn county. I've been police chief for 32 years, and I can't do a goddamn thing about it. Chester's voice cracked. These bastards are untouchable. Grady's jaw clenched. Why'd they do it? Wade refused to pay protection money. Told Raul to go to hell in front of his whole crew. Made Raul look weak. So Raul made an example. Colonel Martinez was already pulling up files on his computer. Raul Medina. The Medina crime family controls 3 counties in western Montana. Drug trafficking, illegal gambling, protection rackets. They've got 52 confirmed members, plus associates. Heavy weapons, military-grade equipment. Multiple federal investigations have stalled due to witness intimidation and police corruption. "Grady," Chester said quietly, "I know what you're thinking, but this isn't Iraq. You can't just." 90 days, Colonel Martinez interrupted. "Emergency family leave, fully authorized. Grady, you've earned this. Whatever you need to make peace with this loss." The colonel's eyes met Grady's. A former ranger himself, Martinez understood the language they were really speaking. "Make it right," Martinez said softly. "But make it clean." Grady spent the next 6 hours in his quarters, not crying, not raging, but planning. The satellite phone call with Sherry had been harder than any firefight. "Are you coming home?" she'd asked, her voice steady despite the tears he could hear. "I'm coming home." Grady. She knew him too well. "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes." A pause. Then, "I'll be waiting. Be smart. Be safe. Come back to me. Always." The knock on his door came at 0200. Douglas Dorsey stepped in, followed by 3 more Rangers. Alejandro McConnell, a sniper who could put rounds through a coin at 800 yards. Forrest Tate, their communications and intelligence specialist. And Archie Kelly, a medic who'd earned his reputation treating gunshot wounds in the field and extracting information from uncooperative sources. "We heard," Douglas said. "We're coming with you. This isn't a sanctioned op. Did we fucking ask?" Alejandro leaned against the wall. "Wade sent me a care package last Christmas. Homemade cookies from his wife. drew pictures from his kids. Now, they're dead because some piece of shit wanted to look tough. Forrest pulled out a tablet. Already started pulling records. This Medina crew, they're not just criminals. They're sloppy. They got comfortable because local law protects them. But they're not ready for us. Archie cracked his knuckles. 52 targets, 90 days. That's 1.73 targets every 3 days. Tight, but doable. Grady looked at his team. Men he'd bled with, who'd saved his life, and whose lives he'd saved in return. This could end your careers. Your freedom. Douglas smiled grimly. Brother, we eat corrupt systems for breakfast. This is just another mission. Millridge Creek sat in a valley between pine-covered mountains, population 8,400, where everyone knew everyone else's business, except when it came to the Medina family. Grady's boots hit the tarmac at Great Falls International, and the Montana cold bit through his uniform. Sherry was wading past security, her dark hair pulled back, eyes red but dry. They didn't speak, just held each other while travelers flowed around them like water around stones. I saw them yesterday, she whispered against his chest. Chester let me see them before. Grady, what they did to those babies. Don't. He pulled back, cupped her face. Don't carry those images. That's my job now. The drive to Millridge took 3 hours. Sherry had rented a cabin outside town under her maiden name, Goodman. Smart. She'd been thinking tactically since she got the news. The funeral's tomorrow, she said. Chester convinced the mortuary to make them presentable. Closed casket for the children. Who's coming? Half the town. The other half's too scared. Raoul's people have been circling, making sure everyone remembers what happens to people who cross them. At the cabin, Grady found his team had already arrived and established a tactical operations center in the basement. Forrest had satellite imagery up on 3 screens. Alejandro was field stripping a hunting rifle. Douglas reviewed topographical maps. Gentlemen, Grady said, meet my wife, Sherry. She's read into the operation. Sherry raised an eyebrow. Read into the operation? You're our eyes and ears in town, Grady said. You're not military, not associated with Wade's business. You can move freely. I can do more than that. She pulled out a folder. I've been asking questions. Carefully. Raul Medina's got his headquarters at a ranch 15 miles north. His second-in-command is Lindsay Hester. Enforcer does the dirty work. The money flows through a casino on the reservation, just outside county jurisdiction. Sheriff Daryl Dixon runs interference, kills investigations before they start. Forrest whistled. Damn, Mrs. Fritz. You work fast. My niece and nephews were murdered. Her voice could have cut glass. Fast is all I've got. The funeral destroyed Grady in ways combat never had. 5 caskets, 2 full-sized, 3 heartbreakingly small. The church overflowed. Wade had been popular, generous, the kind of man who'd give you the shirt off his back. Marissa had taught Sunday school. The children had been innocent light in the world. Now they were gone because a coward with a gun wanted to feel powerful. Chester Gregory gave the eulogy, his old voice shaking with rage disguised as grief. Wade Fritz stood for something in this town. He stood up. He said no to fear, no to tyranny. And we failed him. We let evil prosper because we were too afraid, too comfortable, too willing to look away. In the back pew, Grady spotted them. 3 men in expensive suits, smirking. Raoul's people, sent to gloat, to intimidate, to remind everyone who held the power. Grady memorized their faces. After the service, Chester pulled Grady aside. The old chief looked like he'd aged a decade. I've got Wade's last project files. He was documenting everything, every payment demand, every threat, every piece of the protection racket. He was building a case. Give them to me. Chester handed over a thumb drive. There's a witness. Marion Dalton. She was Wade's secretary, saw everything. She's terrified, gone into hiding, but she'll talk to you. I'll set it up. What about Dixon? Chester's jaw tightened. Daryl Dixon sold his soul 20 years ago. Started small, looking the other way on parking tickets, speeding violations for Medina guys. Escalated from there. Now he's in so deep, he drowns anyone who threatens to expose it. He's got 3 deputies we can't trust. Ernesto Olson, Odell Ochoa, and Connie Riley. They're Medina's enforcers with badges. And the other deputies? 4 good ones, but they're boxed in. They try anything, Dixon crushes them. That night, Grady met Marion Dalton at a truck stop 50 miles east. She was 47, a mother of 2, shaking so hard her coffee sloshed. They killed them like dogs, she sobbed. Wade tried to shield Marissa and the kids. Raul laughed. Then he shot Wade in the head and said, "Anyone else want to be a hero? Tell me everything," Grady said gently. She did. Names, dates, locations. The Medina organization wasn't just a gang. It was a corporation. Raul Medina, the CEO of violence. Lindsay Hester, his COO of brutality. Ernesto Olsen handled logistics. The operation pulled in $15 million annually through drugs, illegal gambling, and extortion. And every cent was protected by corrupt badges and judges who valued money over justice. "Can you testify?" Grady asked. Marion looked at him with hollow eyes. "Testify where? To who? Dixon? The DA who's on Medina's payroll? FBI tried 3 years ago. Their witnesses ended up in shallow graves." Grady leaned forward. What if there was another way? What if the system didn't matter anymore? She searched his face. "What are you planning?" "Justice. Real justice. Will you help me?" Slowly, she nodded. The next 2 weeks were pure intelligence gathering. Grady's team operated like they had in Fallujah and Kandahar. Invisible, methodical, lethal in their precision. Forrest hacked into the sheriff's department servers, mapping the corruption network. Every payoff, every buried case, every dirty deal. The evidence was staggering. Alejandro established sniper hides overlooking Raul's ranch, the casino, and Dixon's home. He cataloged movement patterns, security rotations, vulnerable windows. Douglas mapped the town's infrastructure, power grids, water systems, communication networks. "We control the environment. We control the battlefield." Archie compiled medical records. Raul's got a heart condition, needs medication daily. Lindsay Hester's got a painkiller addiction from a back injury. Ernesto Olsen's diabetic. Everyone's got a weakness. Grady synthesized it all into an operational plan that would have made his commanding officers proud or horrified. Phase 1, he briefed his team. We dismantle their support structure. Cut them off from their money, their protection, their power base. Make them vulnerable. Phase 2, we make them hurt. Not random violence. Calculated strikes that destroy their credibility, their fear factor, everything they've built. Phase 3, we take the head off the snake. Raul, Lindsay, the core leadership. Permanently. Rules of engagement. Alejandro asked. Grady's eyes were cold. Witnesses are civilians. Hands off. Anyone who participated in my brother's murder or who enables this system. Fair game. We're not executing random gang members. We're surgically removing a cancer. Forrest pulled up a map. The casino's the money hub. Take it down, we cripple their cash flow. Not yet, Grady said. First, we turn Dixon's own corruption against him. Chester had provided something invaluable. Access to Will Joseph, a young deputy who'd been trying to fight the corruption from within. At 28, Will had the idealism Chester had lost and the rage Grady understood. They met in Chester's garage. Will looked at the evidence Grady presented. Recordings, financial transfers, photographs of Dixon meeting with Raul. I knew it was bad, Will whispered. But this is a criminal enterprise with a badge. Can you make arrests stick? Grady asked. Not locally. Dixon controls the judges. But federal? Maybe. If we had a clean FBI agent. We do. Grady had called in a favor. An old Ranger buddy now with the FBI's public corruption unit. But we need to give them an airtight case. Which means we need Dixon and his crew on record committing crimes they can't weasel out of. Sherry had been quietly brilliant. She befriended Cheryl Rich, a bartender at the Medina-owned casino, by commiserating about abusive employers. Cheryl was tired, scared, and guilty about her complicity. They're planning something big, Cheryl told Sherry over coffee. Some politician from Helena's coming to the casino next week. Big payoff, hush money for blocking some investigation. Raul's celebrating early. Says after this, they're bulletproof. Grady smiled when Sherry relayed the information. Then that's where we start. The operation was simple but elegant. Forrest planted microscopic cameras and audio devices throughout the casino's private rooms. Alejandro established overwatch positions. Douglas prepared the escape routes. Archie coordinated with the FBI agent, Haywood Lester, who'd be standing by with federal marshals. The night of the meeting, everything went perfectly. State Senator Andreas Rollins walked into the casino's back room, where Raul Medina, Sheriff Dixon, and 3 corrupt judges waited. The surveillance caught everything. The bribe, the explicit discussion of quashing an investigation, Raul boasting about Wade's murder, Dixon laughing about falsifying evidence. "Got it," Forrest whispered through comms. Every word crystal clear. But Grady wasn't done. As Rollins left, Grady made an anonymous call to Helena's main newspaper. "If you want the story of the decade, be at the Millridge Creek Sheriff's Office in 1 hour. Bring cameras." Then he sent the audio file to Haywood Lester with a single message: "Time to move." The FBI hit the sheriff's office like a tactical nuke. Federal marshals arrested Dixon, Olson, Ochoa, and Riley. The judges were picked up at their homes. Senator Rollins was taken into custody at his hotel. The news crews captured every moment. By dawn, the story had gone statewide. By noon, national. The corruption wasn't hidden anymore. It was front-page news, unavoidable, undeniable. Chester called Grady, voice thick with emotion. "You magnificent bastard. Dixon's in federal custody. They're talking RICO charges." "That's one domino," Grady said. "Now comes the hard part. Because while the corrupt law was neutralized, Raul Medina and his 52-member gang were still free. And they were about to learn what happens when you murder a Rangers family. With Dixon in federal custody, Raul Medina lost his shield. But he still had guns, money, and 52 violent criminals who'd built careers on intimidation and murder. He responded to the FBI raid the way cornered animals do, with rage. The morning after the arrests, 3 businesses in Millridge that had testified against Medina years ago burned to the ground. A message: cooperation has consequences. "He's panicking," Douglas observed, watching news footage of firefighters battling the blazes. "Making noise to stay scary." "Let him panic," Grady said. "Panic leads to mistakes." Forrest had been monitoring Medina communications. They're planning a town hall meeting next week, trying to intimidate the new acting sheriff into backing off. Lindsay Hester's coordinating. They're bringing the full crew. Archie pulled up profiles. 52 members, but only 20 are hardcore. The ones who've killed, who'll die for Raul. The rest are hangers-on, wannabes, drug runners who'll scatter when things get hot. "So we target the 20, Alejandro said, checking his rifle scope. "Cut off the head, the body dies." Grady shook his head. "Not yet. First, we destroy what they value. Their reputation, their mystique. We make them look weak." Lindsay Hester fancied himself a tough guy. 6'4", prison tattoos, a record of assault charges that never stuck. He ran Raul's street operations from a strip mall office fronted as a security consulting firm. On Thursday night, Lindsay left his office at 11 p.m., climbed into his custom Escalade, and started the engine. The vehicle didn't explode. That would have been too quick. Instead, every tire deflated simultaneously. The engine died. The doors locked. The windows wouldn't open. And the stereo system, modified by Douglas to override all controls, began playing a very specific recording. Lindsay's own voice. "Yeah, I did the Fritz job. Boss wanted them dead, so I held the family while Raul made his point. Kids were crying, real annoying. Made me want to shoot him myself." The recording played on loop. Every window in the strip mall captured video of Lindsay frantically trying to escape his own vehicle, his own words condemning him, panic replacing his tough guy facade. By the time the recording finished and the doors unlocked, 20 cell phone cameras had captured everything. By morning, it was viral. Forrest had sent the full audio file to the FBI. Lindsay Hester was picked up by federal marshals before noon, charged with conspiracy to commit murder. One down. Ernesto Olson, the former deputy, made his money running illegal gambling operations. He thought his dismissal from the sheriff's department would save him. He could blend back into Raul's organization, keep his head down. He was wrong. Grady and Archie caught him at an underground poker game in a warehouse basement. 14 criminals, $200,000 in cash, enough illegal firearms to stock an armory. Archie disabled the lights, while Alejandro put suppressed rounds through every phone and radio in the room. In the darkness, Grady's team moved like ghosts, zip-tying everyone to their chairs before anyone could draw a weapon. When the lights came back on, Ernesto found himself staring at Grady Fritz. "You know who I am?" Grady asked quietly. Ernesto's face went white. I didn't kill your brother. That was Raul and Lindsay. But you helped cover it up. You falsified reports. You threatened witnesses." Grady leaned close. "You made it possible. What do you want? Money?" "I got money. Name your price." Grady smiled without warmth. "I don't want your money." He zip-tied Ernesto to a support beam, called the FBI tip line from a burner phone, and left with his team, leaving behind 14 criminals, incriminating evidence, and Ernesto's terrified confession, all recorded on cameras Forrest had planted. 2 down. The Medina organization was hemorrhaging. With Lindsay and Ernesto arrested, Raul's infrastructure crumbled. The hardcore 20 started looking over their shoulders. Some went into hiding, some left town. But Raul himself doubled down. He called a meeting at his ranch. The remaining leadership, the ones loyal to the end. Odell Ochoa, another corrupt former deputy. Connie Riley, who'd murdered 3 people for Raul. Grady Fritz, Raul's enforcer who specialized in brutal beatings. Daryl Dixon's brother, Elmo George, who ran the drug operations. 12 men total, sitting around Raul's dinner table, planning their response. "We find Fritz," Raul snarled. "We find his bitch wife. We make them hurt worse than his brother did." Outside, 800 yards away, Alejandro centered his scope's crosshairs on the dining room window. "I've got the shot. Say the word." Grady watched through binoculars. Too easy. Too quick. Negative. Let them plan. Let them feel safe. Because Grady had something better than a bullet. He had the law finally working the way it should. Raul Medina had spent 20 years building an empire on fear. But fear is a fragile thing. It requires constant reinforcement, constant displays of power. Strip away the displays, and the empire collapses. Grady understood this better than most. In Iraq, he'd helped dismantle insurgent networks, not through overwhelming force, but through psychological operations that turned allies into enemies, certainty into paranoia. Now he was doing it again, just with different enemies. The Medina Ranch was a fortress, cameras, motion sensors, armed guards rotating on 6-hour shifts. 12 men living inside, weapons stockpiled, preparing for war. "They think they're safe," Forrest said, watching thermal imaging feeds. "They're locked down tight, waiting for us to make a move." "So we don't," Grady replied. "We make them come to us." The bait was simple but irresistible. Grady leaked word through Marion Dalton's church network that Sherry would be at the cabin alone on Friday night. Vulnerable. Unprotected. Raul took it. Thursday evening, Odell Ochoa and Connie Riley left the ranch with 4 other gang members. 6 total, heavily armed, heading toward the cabin. Except the cabin wasn't where Grady and Sherry were staying. That was a decoy, wired with surveillance, and absolutely nothing else. The real trap was 3 miles down the road. The gang arrived at 9 p.m., weapons drawn, confident in their numbers. They breached the cabin door to find it empty except for a laptop on the kitchen table playing a video feed. Grady's face filled the screen. "Looking for someone?" "Behind him," Sherry waved. "You stupid son of a..." Odell started. "Check your vehicles," Grady interrupted. Outside, all 3 of their cars sat on blocks, tires removed, gas tanks drained. And standing in a perimeter around the cabin, illuminated by floodlights that suddenly blazed to life, were 12 federal marshals and 6 state police officers. Will Joseph, now wearing a federal deputy badge, stepped forward with a megaphone. "You're surrounded. Weapons down. Hands up. Now." The criminals tried to fight. Bullets flew, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outplayed. Within 5 minutes, all 6 were in custody. Raul Medina watched it all happen via his own surveillance network. Forrest had hacked it days ago, giving him a front-row seat to his operation's destruction. His scream of rage could probably be heard in Idaho. With 14 of his core 20 arrested or in hiding, Raul had 8 men left. 8 loyal soldiers against an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't predict, couldn't fight. "We need to leave," Elmo George urged. "Mexico, Canada, anywhere. This Fritz bastard's destroying us." "Run." Raul's voice was venomous. "I've never run from anyone. Your brother ran. Grady Fritz, the enforcer, not the protagonist, said carefully. Dixon ran straight to federal custody. Because they were weak." Raul slammed his fist on the table. "I am not weak. This is my territory, my town. Some army boy thinks he can come here and—" "He already has," Elmo interrupted. "He's already won. Half our people are arrested, the other half are running. We got no police protection, no political cover, nothing. The FBI's got RICO charges building. It's over." Raul pulled a gun and shot Elmo in the head. The 7 remaining men went very still. "Anyone else want to run?" Raul asked quietly. No one spoke. "Good, because we're going to end this. Tomorrow night, we hit Fritz where it hurts. His wife goes first, then his friends, then him. I'm going to make him watch them die screaming." Chester Gregory came to Grady's actual safe house, a rental property 40 miles north, with news. "My source inside Raul's crew says he's planning something big. Tomorrow night, targeting you and Sherry directly." Grady smiled. "Perfect, perfect." Chester looked horrified. "Son, they're coming to kill you." "I know. That's why we're going to make it easy for them." Sherry understood immediately. "You want them to think they've found us. They need to feel like they're winning. One last time, then we take them all." "This is insane," Chester protested. "You're talking about 8 armed killers." Douglas cracked his knuckles. "We faced worse odds in Ramadi. These guys are street thugs playing soldier. We're actual soldiers." Forrest pulled up satellite imagery. "There's an old mining facility 20 miles west. Abandoned, isolated, perfect kill zone. We make Raul think we're hiding there." Alejandro was already calculating firing solutions. "Multiple entry points, but we can channel them. Force them into predetermined zones." Archie laid out medical supplies. "When this goes sideways, and it will, I'll be ready." Grady looked at his wife. "You don't have to be part of this." Sherry's jaw set. "They murder my niece and nephews. I'm part of this." The old Copper Ridge mining facility had been abandoned since the 1970s. Rusted equipment, collapsed tunnels, a main building that groaned in the wind. Perfect place to hide, Grady made sure the Medina crew would think. Forrest planted false evidence, tire tracks, discarded food wrappers, even a fake rental agreement under one of Grady's known aliases. Breadcrumbs leading to a remote location where Raul could strike without witnesses. The gang took the bait. Friday, 8 p.m., 2 vehicles approached the mining facility. 8 men, armed with assault rifles, shotguns, and enough ammunition to start a small war. They believed they were hunting. They were wrong. Alejandro was positioned 600 yards out, night vision scope tracking every movement. Douglas had wired the main building with remote-triggered flashbangs and smoke grenades. Forrest controlled the facility's old electrical system, able to kill power on command. Archie had medical supplies staged, but his real expertise tonight was in close-quarters combat. Grady and Sherry were inside the main building, visible through windows, apparently unaware of the approaching threat. Except Grady and Sherry were mannequins with wigs positioned to look like people in conversation. The real Grady was on the roof. The real Sherry was 3 miles away with Chester and Will Joseph, safe. Raul Medina kicked in the door first, his enforcer Grady Fritz at his side, followed by the remaining 6 gang members. They spread out tactically, clearing rooms, weapons ready. "Upstairs," someone shouted. "I see them." They rushed the staircase, and Forrest killed the lights. In the sudden darkness, Douglas triggered the flashbangs. Disorienting explosions, blinding light. The gang members stumbled, disoriented, firing blindly. Alejandro's rifle coughed once. Twice. 2 men dropped. Grady dropped from the ceiling behind Raul's enforcer, silent as death, and put him in a chokehold. Should have picked a better boss, he whispered, then rendered him unconscious. Four gang members fled toward the exit, straight into a kill zone where Archie and Douglas waited. Non-lethal takedowns, precise and brutal. Within 90 seconds, Fermor were zip-tied and unconscious. That left Raul Medina and one loyalist, Connie Riley, the one who'd burned down the businesses, who'd made his bones killing for the organization. They'd barricaded themselves in the facility's old office, using the metal desk as cover. "Fritz!" Raul screamed. "You think this ends with me? I got lawyers. I got connections. I'll walk. And when I do, I'm going to find everyone you love and—" Grady stepped into view, calm as glass. "No, you won't." Raul fired. 3 shots, center mass. Grady was wearing body armor. The rounds hit like punches, but he didn't go down. Connie tried to flank, but Alejandro's shot took him the shoulder, spinning him around. Douglas was there in seconds, disarming him. Raul's gun clicked empty. Grady walked forward slowly, deliberately. "My brother begged for his children's lives." "What did you do?" "I made them watch," Raul sneered. "Made sure they knew their daddy couldn't protect them." Grady's fist broke Raul's jaw. The crime boss dropped, unconscious before he hit the ground. When the federal marshals arrived, tipped off by an anonymous call, they found 8 members of the Medina organization bound, alive, with enough evidence around them to guarantee life sentences. Grady and his team were long gone, ghosts in the night. "Clean," Grady asked Forrest. "No cameras caught us. No traceable evidence. Far as anyone knows, the Medina crew walked into a trap of their own making. They'd neutralized 20 members. 20 more had fled or disappeared. The organization was destroyed. But Raul Medina was still alive, still dangerous, still facing trial. And Grady wasn't done. The RICO trial was a media circus. Raul Medina, Sheriff Daryl Dixon, 3 judges, State Senator Andreas Rollins, and 24 Medina organization members, all facing federal charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, financial documents, witness testimonies. Marion Dalton took the stand, voice shaking but clear, describing Wade Fritz's murder in detail. Lindsay Hester, facing his own charges, turned state's evidence, providing details of 23 murders and countless other crimes. Even some of the arrested gang members flipped, desperate for plea deals. The federal prosecutor, Diane Baird, was merciless. She painted a picture of systematic corruption, of a criminal enterprise that had held an entire region hostage for 2 decades. Grady sat in the gallery every day, Sherry beside him, watching justice slowly grind forward. But trials take time. Months. And Raul Medina, out on a $10 million bond courtesy of a still corrupt judge in another county, was planning his escape. He's got passports, money in offshore accounts, well, Joseph reported. He'd been promoted after the takedown, now a lead investigator on the federal task force. Word is he's planning to run to Brazil once the verdict comes in. Non-extradition treaty. Can we stop him? Sherry asked. Not legally. He posted bail. He's got the right to move freely until sentencing. Grady's expression didn't change. Then we don't stop him legally. Raul's last night in America, he threw a party at what remained of his ranch. 15 people, family members, a few loyal associates, his lawyers. He was celebrating, confident he'd escape before justice caught him. Forrest monitored from his surveillance van. He's got plane tickets. Private charter leaves tomorrow at dawn, headed to Sao Paulo via Mexico City. Once he's in Brazil, we'll never touch him. Douglas checked his equipment, so we make sure he doesn't reach that plane. No killing, Grady said firmly. We're not murderers, but we're going to make sure he answers for what he did. Archie pulled out a small vial. Fast-acting sedative. Mimic a heart attack. Elevated pulse, chest pain, the works. Given his actual heart condition, paramedics won't question it. Can you get it in his system? Grady asked. Sherry smiled. I know someone who can. Cheryl Rich, the bartender who'd helped expose the casino operation, had been wanting to do more. When Sherry explained the plan, she agreed immediately. That bastard had my cousin killed for stealing $50 from the casino till, Cheryl said. I'll do it. She'd been hired as last-minute catering help for Raul's party. During the toast, She slipped Archie's concoction into Raul's champagne. 10 minutes later, Raul Medina collapsed, clutching his chest, gasping for air. The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. EMTs rushed him to County General, where doctors, unaware of the sedative, treated him for a cardiac event. While Raul was incapacitated, federal marshals received a tip about flight risk. They arrested him in his hospital bed, revoked his bail, and remanded him to federal custody. When he woke up, stable but confused, Raul found himself in a cell, his escape plan destroyed, his future reduced to concrete walls and steel bars. "What happened?" he demanded. The federal marshal smiled. "Heart attack. Lucky we got you medical attention in time. Wouldn't want you dying before justice is served." The verdict came on a Tuesday in March, 4 months after Wade Fritz's murder. Guilty on all counts. For all defendants. Raul Medina, life without parole, plus 300 years on racketeering, murder, conspiracy, and corruption charges. Sheriff Daryl Dixon, 85 years. Lindsay Hester, life without parole. The judges, the senator, the gang members, decades each. The courtroom erupted. Families of victims sobbed with relief. Raul Medina showed no emotion, staring straight ahead as if refusing to accept reality. Outside the courthouse, Grady Fritz stood with Sherry, Chester Gregory, and Will Joseph. Media swarmed, but Grady had nothing to say. Justice had spoken. That was enough. Almost enough. Because Raul Medina, even in prison, tried one last time to hurt Grady Fritz. He put a hit out, $500,000 to anyone who could kill the man who destroyed his empire. The hit lasted exactly 48 hours before federal authorities learned about it, adding witness tampering and conspiracy to commit murder to Raul's already life-destroying sentence. But the attempt told Grady everything he needed to know. Raul would never stop, never change, never feel remorse. So Grady made one final move. He compiled every piece of evidence about Wade's murder. The surveillance footage Forrest had captured, the audio recordings of Raul bragging about the killings, Lindsay's confession, witness statements. He created a comprehensive documentary of the crime, start to finish. Then he sent it to every inmate in Raul's federal prison. In prison, there's a hierarchy. Murderers, drug dealers, armed robbers, they all have their codes. But people who hurt children, they're the lowest. And Raul Medina had murdered 3 children in cold blood. Within a week, Raul was in protective custody after 2 separate attacks. Within a month, he requested transfer to a maximum security facility where he could be isolated. He would spend the rest of his life in a cell, alone, afraid, powerless. Everything he'd made his victims feel. Justice came in many forms. Grady's 90 days of leave ended in late April. His team, Douglas, Alejandro, Forrest, and Archie, had already returned to Iraq, their involvement in the Medina takedown undetected, their service records unblemished. Chester Gregory retired from the police force, replaced by Will Joseph as the new chief. Chester spent his days fishing and finally sleeping peacefully. Marion Dalton moved to Oregon with her children. Starting fresh somewhere, the Medina name meant nothing. The town of Millridge Creek slowly healed. New businesses opened. People stopped looking over their shoulders. The fear that had gripped the community for 20 years finally lifted. And Grady Fritz stood at his brother's grave with Sherry, placing fresh flowers on 5 headstones. "I made it right," he said quietly. "I don't know if that's enough, but I made it right." Sherry took his hand. "They're at peace now. We all are." Before returning to Iraq, Grady met with the 4 federal agents who'd helped coordinate the takedown, including Haywood Lester. Off the record, Haywood said, "We know you and your team were more involved than the report suggests." Grady said nothing. Also off the record, "We don't care. You dismantled a criminal organization that had evaded justice for 2 decades. You did it without crossing lines we couldn't overlook. And you gave us the evidence to put them away forever." Haywood extended his hand. "Thank you for your service, both overseas and here." They shook. At the airport, saying goodbye to Sherry was harder than any deployment before. "Come home safe," she whispered. "Always," he promised. "And when I do, we're starting over." New town, new life. Somewhere quiet. Quiet sounds perfect. As Grady's plane lifted off, he looked down at Montana, scarred but healing, broken but rebuilding. His brother's family would never be forgotten. The corruption that killed them had been burned away. Sometimes the system failed. Sometimes evil prospered. But sometimes someone stood up and made it right. Grady Fritz closed his eyes and slept dreamlessly for the first time in months, knowing that justice, real, earned, uncompromising justice, had finally been served. And that was enough. Epilogue. 2 years later, Grady Fritz retired from the Army with full honors. He and Sherry settled in Oregon, bought a small house near the coast, far from Montana's ghosts. Raul Medina died in prison of a genuine heart attack at age 53, unmourned and alone. Sheriff Daryl Dixon spent his sentence in general population, where former law enforcement officers rarely fare well. Millridge Creek erected a memorial for Wade, Marissa, Emma, Jacob, and Sophie Fritz, a reminder of the cost of silence and the power of standing up. And on quiet nights, when Sherry asked if Grady ever regretted what he'd done, he would think of 3 small caskets, of a brother who'd stood up to evil, of a system that had failed until someone forced it to work. No regrets, he'd say. Not one. Because some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth the cost. And family, blood and chosen, is worth everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.